I'm so delighted to see all of you here, but really honored to be moderating this session. My name is Rachel Cooper. I'm from the Asia Society in New York, and my title is Director of Culture as Diplomacy. Culture as diplomacy, what does that mean? It really is everything that Sunita Kohli does. And just as a starting point, I'm so inspired by her work and the vision of bringing the old to the new re-envisioned, and we're delighted with a launch of her extraordinary new book with 28 essays from a range of incredible writers. It starts with design and the idea of preservation and legacy, but it goes much, much further. I had the pleasure of reading it last night, and congratulations. And let's start by launching this wonderful book.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this event. Sunita Kohli, our friend from India, who's a restorer, an interior designer, interior decorator, has done a number of landmark buildings in India, and she was awarded one of the highest civil awards of India, the Padma Shri in 1992, was it? So here we are, and let's enjoy what she has to offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. My name is Ijazuddin, and my only ambition in life is that when I grow up, I want to be like Sunita Kohli. So we've interacted on a number of occasions, and most recently on Lutyens, where we held a Zoom talk because of the borders, and we were able to talk about a person who has no relationship with you or with me.
Yes.
But in the spirit that anybody who has contributed to the face of the subcontinent as we know it, it deserves to be recognized by whoever. And Sunita has done some wonderful work, and it's a rare privilege for you here in Lahore to be able to listen to her. So Sunita,
thank you.
And congratulations once again on your book.
Thank
28 people, all of whom together are less than you.
No.
Okay?
It's truly such a blessing to be here together, and I'm so inspired. Oh, can you hear it? Okay, sorry, thank you. Let me just say a few words about Sunita Kohli's biography, but really it's her work that's going to speak for her, and she'll be able to lead us into a conversation that I think is very rich and very important. She has a master's and a BA in English literature. So hence here we are at a literary festival, and yet this is a festival unlike any other because it's really about creativity and imagination, and that's where you have taken that idea that comes from life into so many directions that are so inspiring and I think so important. She has no formal training in design, it says in this bio.
Yes.
But what is formal? And what is training? Training is life, I believe, and the formality and the informality is what we bring to it. And inspiration and genius is what I see in your work and what you have brought, not only to your design work, but to your philanthropic work. Your vision of how to give back to society is equally inspiring, and your work globally, and the understanding of how heritage and buildings and architecture and physical culture, like furniture, is more than just an object. It's something that speaks to the heart in a way that I hope we'll be able to explore. So I want to turn it over to you, and I'm excited about your presentation.
Thank you, Rachel, for these very generous comments. And thank you, Shahid and Ejaz. Of course, all prejudiced good friends, so you must excuse that. We've known each other for a long time. And I also would like to thank LLF for inviting me. They have invited me earlier with my cookbook, which was supposed to have been on the intangible heritage of cuisine, but then I couldn't make it, and as Ejaz said, I've done one Zoom session with him for LLF, and now here I am in person through the good offices of many people who really tried for my visa. I really applaud them and thank them. I don't know हमारी तरफ से ऐसे हो सकता था कि नहीं, मगर आप लोग ने कर दिया. Thank you. So really today's illustrated talk is an attempt to include the central ideas that are contained in all the 28 essays. These are all by brilliant academicians, scholars, and many of whom are practitioners of architecture and design. And why did I choose this title, Kala? Because India's design culture is a unique one. When I speak of India, I actually refer to the Indian subcontinent in its entirety. So what the Western world refers to as a collective of art, craft, architecture, and design is evocatively referred to by a singular term in the Indian context, and that is Kala. Kala creates enduring civilizational and cultural legacies which continues to inform the way we live, the way we work, and the way we create today. I had to write out this paper because I'm actually speaking on 28 essays, and I did it just before coming when I knew I was getting my visa. And because I'm also quoting from these essays, so I don't want to misquote anybody. And I would like to show a short AV on Kala, which I'll ask them. This was conceived and produced by a company called Artists of the Jacqua Group. They're very generous in really funding art and culture. And in fact, they had made this short AV for the launches that they sponsored in Milan and in London in October, where it was shown. And then in New York, when I was invited to the Literary Festival, I showed it there, and I thought it appropriate to show it here also. So could you please play this AV? India's design culture is a unique one. What the Western world refers to as a collective of art, craft, architecture, and design is evocatively referred to by a singular term in the Indian context, Kala. India's broad-based nature cuts across boundaries. It was a pleasure to delve into the minds of masters from diverse disciplines. I'm deeply honored that they have chosen to share their valuable essays for this anthology, Kala. To quote Michael Freeman on Indian design, a new generation of architects and interior designers is looking for what is modern as well as unique. India has had 5,000 years of indigenous styles, which were interrupted by a century of colonial ideas, an oddly compressed timeline of India's architecture and design. But this is now the beginning of a distinct period, a new trend of architectural creativity in India. In these pages, we seek to go beyond traditional confines and constructs to explore the many facets of design. From the architect of New Delhi, Sir Edwin Lutyens, whose work progressed from country houses in England to Government House in New Delhi, is an important presentation by Martin Lutyens. To a brilliant essay on modernity as tradition, Brazilian architecture before and beyond Niemeyer by Andrea Aranya Correa do Lago, ambassador to India and who has been a jury member of the Pritzker Awards, equivalent to the Nobel Prize for Architecture. to a wide range of fascinating perspectives by eminent personalities on contemporary design aesthetics that celebrate art, craft, architecture, and design etymologies. These are essays that should be compulsory reading in all architectural and design schools. Kala has essays by architects, designers and art historians, many of whom are prolific authors and builders of cultural institutions. Influences, and the transformation of the so-called English country house style is a brilliantly written essay on design by Lady Jane Churchill. An essay on taking an Indian brand to the world features artist products that have been conceived by globally renowned designers who use the born from art approach to create objects of unsurpassed aesthetic and functional qualities. This thinking has resulted in many achievements and accolades for the brand artists. From cosmology to cartography, A Cultural Journey of Indian Maps is a deeply researched essay by the urban planner Dr. Vivek Nanda, to essays on many other art and architectural forms such as the ingenuity and beauty of the temporary architecture of exhibition structures. India's cultural and architectural heritage runs rich and deep, flowing from a 5,000-year-old history. It is a matter of pride that India is not a homogeneous culture. India is a living museum of syncretic cultures. This is best illustrated in India's architectural heritage. To quote, "Architecture is history written in stone." These lotuses are used as a leitmotif to illustrate the syncretism of Indian art and architecture. 1,000 lotuses, carved by Hindu craftsmen, adorn the ceiling of the prayer hall in this 17th century mosque in Gujarat. That is India. The journey of Kala, where many facets of design have been explored, would not have been possible without artists, that is, born from art. Artists pays tribute to fine traditions of exquisite craftsmanship by bringing together the finest in design and technology. It has been our privilege to bring to you Kala in association with artists, where two masterpieces have been crafted together as an ode to ultimate creativity. At the outset, may I state the obvious, and you all know that there is a symbiotic relationship between the geography. As you all know, that in the beginning, geologically, there was no India, and all the continents lay huddled together as proto-continents, and it's about 170 million ago that they started to, because of plate tectonics, they started to break apart. And a big triangular chunk from this land mass broke away from the eastern flank of, just above Madagascar, on the eastern side of Africa. And this triangular, huge, massive chunk of land started to move away, and when it started to move away, it turned slightly anti-clockwise and then began a 40-million-year-old journey northeastwards across 4,000 kilometers of this primal Tethys sea, till it's docked into the soft underbelly of the Asian landmass. And it kept pushing and pushing, and that is what actually reared the Himalayas, which are the youngest, the highest mountain ranges in the world, which stretch from the east near Assam and go all the way to the Hindu Kush, and before they turn southward. And so these are all facts of geography which have been there. But what happened when these Himalayas were being reared? As they rose higher and higher, snow started forming, and it started melting, and then these several thousands of rivers with their tributaries kept coming down. And with it, it brought salt. And at the base of where what we call the Himalayas today, a huge swampy lagoon had formed. So this silt and alluvium kept filling and filling and filling till it formed what is known as the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Here, Indo-Gangetic has nothing to do with India. Don't forget, the name India came much later. And actually the name India, oops, sorry for that. And the name India was, as you all know, was because it came from the Sanskrit word Sindhu. The Persians mispronounced it and they called it Hindu. And then came along the Greeks, and then they changed it to Indus. And then in the medieval period, that Indus became India. So the name India is fairly recent. But to go back to what was happening geologically, because it's so important that this great plain became where all the great kind of dynasties came from this Indo-Gangetic plain. Because south where this crystalline mast that had come is one of the oldest chunks of the Earth's crust. And it had been above water for 500 million years. The rest of India had really been underwater. I mean, what we call India today. And when I refer to India, please remember I'm referring to the subcontinent, because geologies, geographies do not respect recent political boundaries, and certainly as recent as the countries that have been formed on this subcontinent, that is Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. So I'm speaking of all of it. And so this is Gondwana land, and this is the Himalayas. And then I speak about trade routes, because this implies an osmosis of cultures across geographies. There is a common thread that runs through the diversity of essays featured in color, and this common thread is the centrality of design in all forms of artistic expression. According to me, design is rooted in a multi-sensory experience of the world and the twin desire of the human eye to seek out beauty, and of the mind's eye to make sense of our world and our environment. As one has stated in one's foreword in color, design is foremost inspired by nature. Design is dynamic, design is all-pervasive, and design runs through art and craft. It is everywhere, whether in nature or in objects hewn by the human mind, by the human hand. To cite an example among thousands in India or globally, where all four elements of color, that's art, craft, architecture, and design, overlap, I speak of the Basilica of La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, which you just saw. Sorry. That's it. Sorry, we've come back to where it was. And then, interestingly, Kala features an essay by Sofia Abramchuk, who heads the Gaudi Institute in Barcelona. Her essay analyzes Gaudi's genius through his handwriting. In India, on a domestic scale, I would cite the example of the late 18th century summer palace of Tipu Sultan in Karnataka. Here, art, craft, design, and architecture meld together in the most exquisite fashion and color palette, with stone and wood juxtaposed to create striking beauty of different textures. And on a monumental scale, a prime example in India is the 8th century temple of Kailash. This is in Karnataka, because this is the largest monolithic structure in the world. It was carved from the top down 300 feet. It's a different matter how many hundreds of not just artisans, architects, engineers, and people who were structural engineers were required, apart from, of course, dance, people who had a knowledge of dance and music were required to carve such a temple. And I mean, it's genius. And there are 3 brilliant essays which delve into the ideas and origins of indigenous design and architecture. Indigenous Perspectives, the Discovery and History of Architecture is a dialogue between the late architect Ashish Ganju and architect Narendra Dengle. This is a seminal work which I had made it mandatory to study when I was chairperson of the School of Planning and Architecture in Bhopal. That is one of the reasons why sometimes I'm referred to as an architect. I'm not Rachel. I'm an interior designer who has also done architectural conservation work. So, I mean, I don't blame people. And that is what my Padma Shri was for, interior design and architectural conservation work. So, this essay is a continuation of their research on telling the story of Indian architecture, but from an indigenous perspective, because we have all grown up on all the Percy Browns and on the colonialists and what they thought about our architecture. So it's about time that we started really telling our own stories. And I won't go much into the Shri Chakra because this is a Hindu mystical diagram representing energy, matter, and creation, and it can be read in the book. And I want to tell you here that this book, unfortunately, is not available but I'm going to give Razi, send him a PDF of the book, and whoever wants it can put in their name with Razi, and the hard copies will really only be available in the next 2 months. Whatever was there was all used up in these book launches. So, and then we have Dr. Shunalika Kaul's essay titled Towards the Semantics of Architecture, and it also analyzes approaches to writing a new history of architecture, again from an indigenous perspective. And central to her essay is the differentiation between the Western and Indian concepts of space. In the West, architecture is fundamentally articulated space, which means it is contained space. Whereas the Indian concept of space or akash is that of an infinite continuum. Dr. Kaul uses the Chit Mandala to illustrate 3 layers of space: the infinite external space, our mind space, and our heart space. And Dr. Kaul's essay emphasizes the vital link between the individual and the universal in the Indian approach to design and architecture. Then we have Neeta Khanna's brilliant essay titled Cosmic Connections, Fasting, Feasting, and the Hindu Temple, which is part of her book where actually she will be speaking or writing about about fasting and feasting in all the faiths, I mean the major faiths that exist in India. She's a brilliant woman, and I'm sure her book will also be brilliant. And the last from her book, so, you know, I have titled all these because they have strange names, I'm sure. So I chose to title all the essays, and I just come to, this is the Vastu Purush Mandala on which all temple architecture is built. I mean, these are concepts that go back 2,500 years they were written about. And this, a visit to the temple, she writes, was meant to bridge the space between the individual and the universal consciousness, the physical and the spiritual, and represented a journey to the core. And here I'm showing the Sri Rangam temple, which is the largest temple complex in India. It's in Tamil Nadu. It has 7 concentric walls. This is from a painting that actually belongs to me. It's a 19th century Mysore painting, and which is better than at the National Museum in Delhi, I might add. And in this painting, it's all to, this temple complex is all to Vishnu. And the main deity is Vishnu lying on the coils of the snake. I won't go into what that symbolizes, because that symbolizes universal waters. He's created the universe, and there's still he's resting between acts of creation. And there is still residual matter left to create more universes. But the interesting story of this is that in the 18th century, there was one kind of wheeler-dealer noticed that and you know, everything is in gold and precious stones and everything. As you know, in India, in the old temples, how it goes. And one dealer noticed that one eye of Vishnu shone more brightly than did the other eye. So he got hold of a corrupt pujari, meaning a priest, and that eye was taken out. Eventually it found its way to London, then from London to Paris, and it was purchased by Count Orlov, who was then the lover of Catherine the Great, and he was kind of going out of disfavor. So he thought, you know, to win her affections back, he presented, it's that big diamond, and which you can all see at the Diamond Fund in the Kremlin Museum. So she took the diamond. She did name it the Orlov diamond, but threw him out of her bed. And then she had it put in her scepter. So this is where you still see it today. It's called the Great Mughal diamond. So, I mean, anybody who goes to Russia will see it there. And so there are many stories. You know, how much can you do in one sort of 1 hour talk, 50-minute talk? And then we have Dr. This is, of course, Varanasi, which is Hindus consider it the holiest of all cities, and people go there to do their ablutions in the water, that all their sins will be washed away. Well, whoever believes in it, believes in it. Whoever doesn't, doesn't. I'm certainly a Hindu and I'm skeptical. But then we have Dr. Vivekananda's richly illustrated essay, From Cosmology to Cartography. And incidentally, his wife is, who many of you know, is Dr. Tanveer Hassan, who's a British Pakistani and great friends of ours. And in that essay, he showcases the evolution of the earliest pilgrimage maps made for a spiritual quest, and which later evolved into the cartographic maps as we know them today. And then we have holistic concepts such as the ones referred to in these essays are often associated with sustainability. In this context, I reference 2 essays written by Dr. Alka Pandey and Dr. Yuta Jain. And Dr. Alka Pandey in her essay Panch Tattva, which means the 5 elements, the way ahead, writes about the centrality of the 5 natural elements in Indian architecture and how temples were built to represent them. So we have in this so we have a temple to Vayu, which is air, and a temple to Jal, which is water. And then in Dr. Yuta Jain's essay, she illustrates the triple impulse of sustainability, utility and aesthetics in her essay, Water Architecture in India, Morphology, Histories and Ecology. And superb craftsmanship, as we know, was at the heart of all construction. The 5 essays on craft exemplify my own views on this key element of the Kala matrix. And as I strongly feel that craft is the instrument that allows the vision of design to be completed. So we have Jaya Jetli in her essay titled Positioning Arts and Crafts at the Heart of India's Culture. She writes about their centrality to the everyday life of Indians.
I'll give you a minute and let me just say I'm so struck by the vision of the cosmology that you're showing us and the kind of worldview that is so clear as part of this. And this concept of space between the Western space of contained and the idea of the infinite and how that fits into the elements. I think we have, if it's okay, can I go to questions? You want to?
Would you like to? I'm sorry, I've.
Yeah, I think if we just give you a minute to get your voice back, and I think all of us are quite struck by. I mean, I think the frustration is that this is such rich material and so powerful that we would love to have a little bit more time. And I was particularly moved by the fact that you started with geology and geography and how 40 million years ago then comes into 5,000 years ago comes into, the last couple centuries. And you start to feel that time really does become condensed in a very different way and then is realized in through these essays that you're so beautifully describing.
Thank you for that. I should have warned right in the beginning that I arrived in Lahore after a very exhausting time in Delhi, and I immediately got fever and this terrible cough. So I'm feeling much better thanks to all the medication. This is from husband, so all of that. I really apologize for that, but it's sort of this spasm is beyond my control.
Yeah, maybe we should take a few questions and everyone will have a chance to
Should
see
I
the
just
book.
finish?
Would you like to finish?
I think I'll just finish.
Okay.
Let Shahid ask. No, why don't you ask? Why don't you ask me?
Is it all right? Well, Sunita, it's a real pleasure for all of us to have you here in Lahore.
Thank you.
A city that you know very well.
I was born here.
You were born here, I know, so you know it as good as well as all of us.
The heart knows it.
Very good.
If you're born in a city.
This remarkable career has been termed as accident.
Yes.
So it was a good accident, a pleasant accident, but would you like to say something about this accident that made you into an interior designer?
You know, my father decided, he was a refugee from Lahore. I was born in Lakshmi Mansions. And why did he settle in Lucknow? Because they were homeless. They didn't know this part of India at all. Why did he decide to go to Lucknow? Because as a college student, he had once been to Lucknow. And he thought that the closest approximation to Lahore with its grace and charm was Lucknow. So he arrived there. So I grew up in Lucknow. My father was, what should I say? They came with nothing but, you know, your education, your all that doesn't go. I mean, you might be penniless. And so he arrived, and then, of course, he's worked very hard, built up a business and things like that, and to educate us. We lived well. He made many, many friends in Lucknow and everything. But, you know, he would take us from a very early age. Firstly, my father was a great reader, so that was encouraged in the house. And then he would take us to, as I said in yesterday's talk, he would take us to all these shops. They were kabadiwalas then, now they fancifully call themselves antique dealers. So he would take us. So we always were looking at beautiful things. Whether one could buy them, not buy them, that was irrelevant. And so and from a very early age, he took us traveling. Lucknow also fashioned the fact that I became a designer. I mean, this was all happening subconsciously, because I studied literature, BA, master's, incomplete PhD, and but so that history of English literature very closely follows the history of furniture. So that is what I started reading, studying, just as a matter of interest. Little realizing that one day it would become, because I make furniture, I've been making furniture for 50 years. You know, I'm pretty ancient. I'm 76, I'm as old as both our independent countries. And because I was born just at the time of partition, just before it. And I've been working for 50 years now, 51 years today, so continuously. So that was that. And then, I don't know, I learned how to restore furniture. I then started making furniture. From making furniture, next thing it became, I'm talking about 71, 72. It started kind of, somebody would say, you're making the furniture for us, why don't you also do the place? But very soon after that, in 75, my first hotel was for the Oberois. I have essentially been, and that was in Khajuraho, I have essentially been, as far as my design work is concerned, I've been a hotel designer, and I've worked on public buildings. For instance, I have designed and worked on the Parliament building in Bhutan, and I'm very proud to say that they chose me as an Indian to do it, because there were all sorts of people from America and all that were being considered. And I'm also I'm very research based, and that comes from my university training in literature, this thing of research. And so I think I'm an autodidact. I am self-taught, and I can't be blasé, but I'm the first person in India to receive a Padma Shri for interior design in 92, way back, I mean, ancient history, but still. And so I don't know, it just became a journey. Chalte chalte all sorts of things happened. Chalte chalte ye kitab bhi 3 mahino mein tiyar kar di, you know, because they're all friends of mine.
We lost the Kohinoor and you lost the other diamond. Let's both of us try and get them back.
Absolutely.
sorry, I think we have time for one more question. No? It's two. Good question. How does cooking fit into the picture?
You know, I think what we tend to do in our lives is we put ourselves in silos. We are not just one person. We have many sides to us. I mean, like people ask me, I have a Visharad, which is the equivalent of a BA in Hindustani classical music. My sister is a trained musician and she sung here also. So, so they say, Acha, but you've got a Visharad, so you must be singing also. I said, अरे भाई सुनने वाले भी तो होने चाहिए ना, सब कोई गाना शुरू कर दे तो क्या होगा? So the same thing, you know, we grew up with good food and everything else, so that is it. I think we should end.
I'm sorry, I know they're going to stop us. They'll cut the electricity or something. But we're all pretty rapt, and I think this is truly a Renaissance woman who speaks for the ages. So please join me in thanking her for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you for being such a wonderful audience, and thank you for your kind attention.